Okay, welcome to Burnt Bridge. As you can see, we finally made it to the studio. And today we have our first guest, who is my absolute best friend in this whole life.
Stop it for me.
Emily Eichenauer. Welcome to the stage.
Hello. Hello.
We're so happy to have you here, Emily. I wanted her to come on because number one, she's my best friend, and number two, I thought it would be really interesting to have the perspective of a best friend of someone who is an addict and alcoholic. And Emily, lucky for her, got to see me before, during, and after.
Mm-hmm. Good, bad, beautiful.
Good, bad, ugly, perhaps. Yeah, and so I think we're just going to talk all about that. But first of all, I want to give some shout outs to people celebrating sobriety milestones today. Or this week, I mean. Joseph has 12 years on June 20th. Everyone snap for Joseph. 12 years is amazing. Vincent is celebrating 1 year on June 15th. Snaps for Vincent. And Shane is also celebrating 1 year on the 23rd of June. Woo-hoo. Incredible. We're all rooting for you. Amazing. So, Emily, welcome to Burnt Bridge.
So happy to be here. So official. People can't see from right here, but I mean, this is a setup.
It really is.
This is like the whole situation. And we've got this beautiful sign back here.
Can you believe it? One time I was in a ditch and now we're here.
I knew we weren't going to get far without talking about the ditch.
I've been thinking about the ditch all day. Like, if you would have told Bridget in the ditch that we'd be here today,
she wouldn't have heard you.
She would have said, "What did you just say to me?"
So true.
Okay, Emily, do you want to tell everyone how we met?
I think I do, actually.
They're coming for you, by the way.
Oh, I was going to say, I shouldn't be here. Well, we both went to Texas State, and Bridget and I had the absolute just honor of being mates right down the hall from each other in the shittiest dorm at Texas State.
Period.
Shout out to the girl who I had to be roommates with who forced me to be there. So if it weren't for that fateful situation, we wouldn't know each other that well. But yeah, we met like literally the first day of college. Like walked in, you were across the hall from the girls who I was friends with from high school, who we all went to college together. And I just remember looking across the hall and we were all like talking about who's gonna rush, who's gonna like all the different things, and when you popped out and we're like, well, you're gonna be our friend.
That is so nice. And then I was too shy to say anything to you guys for the first.
It took a few weeks. For a
little while.
We all got like the same sorority, so that was a nice like forcing element to it. And we saw the little. Are we allowed to say the name of the sorority on this?
I wouldn't.
Okay. We all got the same one, and we saw the same signs on the doors, and I feel like just from the jump, like all of us could tell that we had the same weird, maybe like cynical sense of humor, sort of, even as very naive, crazy, drunk freshman girls.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, I just feel like you and I kind of clicked right away, even though you did like to stay indoors and not party as much.
I know. Believe it or not, I did want to be inside at all times.
Yeah. But we didn't let that happen.
No, and honestly, the way that I remember us becoming friends is you told me you're going to be my friend now.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay.
I just could tell you could take direction, you know what I mean?
And that's so true.
It is.
I love a rule and I love to follow it. It's really confusing based on my entire history, but that is the truth.
That is so true.
I think it's really cool how through college and after and during my addiction and after, we have just kind of flowed in and out of each other's lives, but we always
kinda, like floated in similar ways. Obviously without the addiction on my side, but like very much we ended up in the Midwest at the same time. Horrible.
literally that was dark days for me.
Like when I went and visited you in Oklahoma, I was living in Kansas.
Yeah.
Equally as middle of nowhere. Like after college type of thing.
And if anyone follows me on TikTok, you probably know some of my Oklahoma stories. As you can imagine, it was the darkest time of my life when I lived there.
Tulsa is a place right there.
And I made you come and visit me.
No, you didn't make me do anything. I signed up. I was like, what's up?
I was living in a trailer with no running water. I took a shower at Planet Fitness. I took a shit in a
bucket.
dog, and that's what my life was.
And I stayed over and we had so much fun. Like, I think I slept with the dogs, right? Willie and Swagger literally like slept dog bed style next to them after hanging out for a whole night, just getting drunk on a farm pretty much.
And that was my life.
Yeah.
For many moons.
I had fun. And then I told my parents I was at an organic farm.
It was a weed farm. There was marijuana there. Which is hilarious
But it was
because
a great
I
time.
never liked weed.
Not
so
one
tell me
bit.
why I was living on a weed farm.
I don't know, but I liked it.
I know you did like it. And also you saw a
crawfish.
rogue crawfish.
Crazy. Didn't know that we would see just the singular crawfish at any point. Like, I woke up in the morning, went outside, stretched, saw the Tulsa sunshine, was just letting it hit me, and I look over and a crawfish is doing the exact same thing, and I was like, what the heck?
And it was like alive.
No, and then Austin literally goes, yeah, they do that sometimes. I was like, is there water around us? He's like, there's a creek somewhere back there. It's like,
imagine
crazy behavior.
like that crawfish
That was nothing to him.
traveled miles and miles to
To do
join you that
yoga
day.
next to me
Absolutely.
on the organic weed farm.
I would love to know, Emily. What was, Emily, please tell us. Tell the group. What was your perception of my drinking when we were in college?
I mean, I think we all drank
Well,
like a lot. I think there was one time sophomore year, remember, when it was like me, you, all our roommates at the Vistas, and we were sitting there, we're like, decided for once to be adults and not go out on like a Tuesday. And I think all of us was suddenly like that Spider-Man meme. We're like, hands like, have we ever done this before? Like, that's how frequently we went out. So I don't think in the beginning I thought a ton of it, but like, obviously looking back now, there are some slight differences between maybe how like we relied on it versus how you sort of relied on it in a way. They're coming back for me.
they're coming for me this time.
They really are. But like, I don't think back then I would have pointed directly at that. And I don't think that's like right to say almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like I did a good job hiding it because I was so anti going out.
Yes, definitely.
And
I didn't mean like for sure.
No, literally, you guys had to drag me out. I was always like, I think we should get 7 bottles of wine and
Yes.
stay here.
Yeah,
And
and
talk
do
about,
karaoke.
Yeah.
We loved karaoke at the Vistas.
And I still do.
Yeah,
to this day.
that's actually so true. But I think even back then, there was always a difference in like if one of us were having a bad day, like obviously you wanted to go out and just like get drunk and do whatever. But if it wasn't available, whatever, it kind of was just because we weren't 21 at the time. So, like you just had to kind of bite it at some point. And then there were times in which if you had a bad day, we were getting shit-faced that night. It was like not an option.
Yeah.
And were we mad about it? No, never
Yeah.
once. But I feel stuff like that is like now bird's eye view. You look back on it and think, okay, maybe a little tidbits all over the place, but I wouldn't say it's like something to judge off of right away,
Yeah. And like, obviously, I didn't know I had a problem. I just thought I was more sad
The
than everyone
darkness.
else. I just thought the darkness was all consuming at all times. But I was like, you guys are just happy.
Right.
And you drink and then you party. And I'm sad and I drink and I mourn.
Yeah. The horrors.
The horrors are persisting.
But I think through all of it, that was like a big difference too, is that you could tell that for you, it was kind of more difficult where like everybody else would be drinking. We'd just be having such a good time because we were like negligent and crazy and just were as a squad wild and reckless, And then you could tell that sometimes it got to your head that like when you got in that place, you kind of withdrew, felt differently. And that was kind of hard from the outside to see then, but now it just makes a ton of sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I look back and I'm like, yeah, no, obviously others were sad as well, but they didn't. They did not do. Remember the last time I ever drank sweet red wine. Sweet, that was the name of the wine.
And it also was like 2 liters, 2-liter bottles. We would make each other like it was not funny if you didn't finish your bottle on your own. It was like we would bully you.
And I woke up in your bathtub, I think, that day, and
Yes.
and then literally since that day, for the rest of my life, I was no longer able to drink any red wine,
For the
I would
best.
shit my pants. Like immediately. Like that's why I made the switch to white wine, which I think,
Catapulted
I
things.
mean, I can really drink that shit like water.
Yeah.
So I think genuinely it all comes back to the sweet
Vistas.
red.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
And
definitely.
it was a tragic.
And that was like a $4 bottle of wine too. Why would they do that to us?
I'll never forget the logo of it too.
Me neither. The little grapes.
Yep, grapes.
Terrible.
It's burned
Terrible.
into my memory.
Oh god.
So you know, college was, we all just had our moments.
Our big ones.
And then we graduated and we all kind of like went our separate ways. And what was your perception of what was going on with me? Because, you know, hopefully you guys have watched episode 1, but after college things really went downhill for me.
I feel like you couldn't have completely seen it from the outside. You know what I mean? Like, I know I was in Kansas, so I got to, like, even going to visit you in Tulsa, I did not know.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have known. You know? Things were bleak as it was, but it's just, I thought it was Oklahoma.
And
it is Oklahoma.
And that was a factor, I'll say that.
And I remember coming back and telling my mom, like, had such a great time, hung out with Bridget. And then I think, like, looking back, I think my mom was trying to see if you wanted to do, like, a canvas or something for her. Oh, remember?
I was not finishing any projects
And,
at
like,
this time.
there was one thing where she was like, I text Bridget about it, and she hasn't texted me back. And I was like, she's literally in the middle of nowhere. That's probably it. Rehab, actually, is what it was.
Cheryl, I want to say,
Love you.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
So sorry about not finishing your canvas.
There's-
I am available for purchase at any time.
She'd buy one no matter what anyways. She still thinks you were just like the most beautiful, you know, exotic looking human she's ever met.
Meanwhile, I'm literally white.
From Flower Mound, Texas. But yeah, I feel like even then that was really the only, like, even inkling. And how would somebody have known that from the outside, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is kind of like a telltale in a weird way too, of like you never really know what's going on with somebody.
Was the first time I told you about rehab when I went to your house?
Yes.
Oh, T.
I
Period.
feel like it's like a core memory now. In a good way though, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I had gone, we'd always like kept in touch, obviously, because like even after college, like, let's be honest, all the people, everybody kind of floats around, you know, you see people here and there, but like if you don't go out of your way to see somebody, I feel like it's kind of saying, like, telling in a way. And I feel like since you and I always kept in contact, I don't remember if it was you who reached out to me or vice versa when we both were here again. But whenever you came over that day, I just remember being like, wow, one, Bridget's skin looks amazing.
Period.
Like baby's ass, just supple, glowing, gorgeous.
Love being supple.
And I just knew that you'd been here for a little bit because I had been back in Austin for like 4 or 5 years at that point, right? Since you came back in general. And I think when I saw you here, we were like just hung out, went to go get lunch or something one day. And you came over and we're just talking about, you know, life, liberty, the fun, silly things. And then you sat down. And I just remember like it's burned into my memory. Like in my little white chair, you know, the light is coming on you perfectly. You just look like you're glowing. And then suddenly the words coming out of your mouth were horrific.
I think it was like, so how
been
have you been? I have been
And I had a rehab a few times. Like, I think you told me the ditch story. You told me just all sorts of stuff. And like I said the other day, it was literally like when you're watching a movie that's dubbed in English and you knew it was originally in like another language. Like, I hear what you're saying that's not matching up, but you look so good doing it, you know? And I was just like, wow. Because I knew I'd seen you in between that.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, holy crap. And it kind of, like what we talked about the other day, sort of made me reach back in my mind and think like, how did I not see this? Like, was there something someone could have done? And it's just so crazy when someone's sitting there like bearing their soul and just being like, hey, this one was all me, man. And I love that about like alcoholics in general and addicts that I've totally seen. It's like just how accountability driven you guys have to be. It's just so funny that when someone does do that, it just makes you think about yourself. And it's so strange.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I was just like, what is going on?
You were the first person who wasn't, because obviously, as you can imagine, I did distance myself from everyone in my life during that time. And you were the first person from my like previous life that I brought up to speed on the events that had taken place.
It was a fun day.
And
But it really was.
I struggle to, I'm either so serious that I'm going to cry,
Right.
or I'm so not serious when I'm telling you perhaps the saddest thing that's ever happened to me.
Many in a row, too. It was just like boom, 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 boom. I was like, but it was the sandwich method that we talked about, where it's like, hey, all this great stuff happened. Bad, 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 bad. And here we are now, all is good. Because you had like gotten the job pretty much you've always wanted as like a senior creative director. I mean, again, you looked amazing. You just seemed to be like, I feel like after college and throughout that time, we always kind of like got each other on a different level, sort of, because you just have that aura to you that's like, I'm going to tell you all my secrets. It's really your Twilight, like, superpower. So I feel like we always had that. And sitting there, like, something was different about you for sure, but not to that extent. And I just remember being like, wow, I did not see that. But also I'm not going to, like, judge or think anything differently of it. And I think that's kind of the first time, because I'd never really met or known, like, an addict that deeply before. So it was very interesting. Like, I feel like kind of a switch flipped after that.
Yeah.
And it caused me to just be like, I obviously don't know what it's like to be in your spot, but it's been very eye-opening since then. And I kind of feel like, not that I think we need everybody to be like an addict out there, but I think it would honestly like benefit a lot of people to have a friend like that, because it definitely opens your mind and your perception of things. And that's on you, sister, right there.
Well, I appreciate it. And what I'll say about you, and one of the reasons that I wanted you to be my first guest, is that Emily, one thing about Emily is she is, I always say, my most mentally sane friend I've ever had. She's never had a fear, I don't think.
That's not true.
She literally just wakes up and she's just productive all day, and then she isn't like consumed by thoughts. It's actually insane.
Not as many
One
thoughts.
time you told me, you said, I don't think I've ever like really had anxiety or depression. I was like, what? What do you mean?
Not to what it sounds like. You know what I mean? When you hear somebody like really talk about being like as sad, and I'm like, I'm not going to pretend that I've been there, but I feel for you deeply,
Well, and that's the thing. Like, most people that I know who have not struggled in that way, they obviously don't understand, but they also can't really even try to put themselves in a place of understanding. And you have been so healing for me as a friend over the last 3.5 years, because I know that you obviously don't know what it's like, but I have never seen a normal person put in so much effort to try to understand. And like, that is, if anyone's watching who has a loved one who's an addict, like, just the attempt to understand can be so healing to make you feel like I'm not judging you, and I want to understand, what does it mean to be an alcoholic? What does it mean? Like, what do you need from me in this time? And you have just been absolutely that person for me. And so much so that for years you said, I want to go to an AA meeting with you.
I did.
And I was always like, I don't know about that. But then when I got my 3-year chip this year, I said, Emily,
I got called up to the bench, baby. Let's go.
You can come to this open meeting, which,
What was it?
normies are allowed to go to.
Was it a big book meeting or
No, it was just a regular old
Sorry.
meeting. But and I would love to hear and tell everyone your experience as a normal person attending an AA meeting.
I loved it. I think everybody should go to one. Not that I think they want everybody to go to one, right? So like, that's not it's not call to action.
If you're gonna go, make sure it's an open meeting, because that is open to addicts and non-addicts alike. But continue.
I feel like it was, again, just eye-opening and also crazy inspirational. Like, I mean, the amount of stuff that people say there that simply, you could not waterboard information like that out of me. I could be in a Vietnam prison and you would not get that stuff out of my mouth. And I'm not even joking. And not even in a bad way. In a way, it's like, it's incredible that so many of these people who look different, are in different places, have different stories, all these things, like, have no, like, bounds and like just being open and vulnerable because you guys all have this one thing in common. And I think something that really stuck with me afterwards was realizing that like for the first time I was in a spot that I feel like you or addicts in general are usually in, where like you're one of a bunch that don't understand, or vice versa. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, like when
I was
go
the
to
fish
a bar,
out of water. Exactly.
I'm always the weird one.
Exactly. And like, not that you're acting on or anything like that, but just sitting there knowing like, wow, was just very eye opening. And I think for the first time, I finally could see what connected everything sort of in a way. Like every time someone talked about just, it wasn't so much as like you guys all had the same story. It was more how you felt about it, how things would make you feel, and like what drew everybody to the positions that they were in.
Yeah.
And I had always heard you kind of talk with that theme, but to hear everybody who you didn't even know half those people. Actually, you didn't know most of those people, you know?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to go to the same meeting over and over, right?
Yeah.
Like
correct.
anyone can go. And so I just thought that was so interesting. And it just made so much sense finally to know like, yeah, this is a true disease that like no matter your situation, you can be affected by this wholly and thoroughly. Like I know after college and like once like anybody would find out that you had, you know, you were an addict and like in recovery and everything, there were many times where people would come to me and be like, for real? You know, because it's not as common to see somebody like at our age, like, you know, go through something like that and then be in this spot afterwards.
Yeah.
And I kind of think, yeah, at first, like, I get why somebody initially would have that, like, scrutiny to it, but sitting in that room with all of those people who literally the spectrum of human beings at one time, I can see it now so clearly. And I feel like it really is important for people to kind of know that it doesn't have to have a certain face, you know?
Well, and that's always been my mission with sharing like online about it, is because I too also felt that
Right.
it couldn't be me. That's why I didn't get sober for a long time, is because I was like, well, simply impossible.
Yeah.
I'm not an old man brewing coffee at an AA meeting. Therefore, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm just a sad girl, and I've always been sad. So that's what
Right.
we're doing. And so I understand that. And even as an alcoholic and an addict, when I have friends in recovery who relapse, I'm like, what are you doing? But like, and I
Right.
understand, like, it's just such a hard thing to grasp. And that's why I think,
It's like empathy, though. I feel like the whole thing just really makes you look at a situation like without judgment.
Yeah.
You have to just take yourself out of it and not be like, oh, I would never do that. This would never happen to me, because obviously our lives are very similar and it did happen to you. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of been like a huge just like switch that kind of flipped finally after a while. Being like, oh my God, it doesn't have a face. Everybody could have this happen at some point in time.
well, and I want to go back to what you said about when you went to the meeting and because you texted me afterwards and you said, basically what you said about how I'm usually the one when we go out, like I'm kind of, not that it feels this way in
Or
the moment.
looks like it too, yeah.
But I am the one who's somewhat of the outlier because I just can't partake in the major activity that everyone else is.
And because you just have a different relationship to this legal thing
Yeah.
that everybody else gets to use.
Yeah. And just you pointing that out and being like, and in this meeting, I got to feel what it feels like to be the one in the room who, you know, is like different in some way. And now, I hadn't even thought about that, honestly.
I mean, trust me, me neither, but I was sitting there like, wow.
I am not the same as these people.
But not in a bad way, in a way
Yeah.
that's like, I literally have done, I'm sure there's plenty of things out there like that I would never want to admit to type of thing, but like
Drugs.
the thing, precisely. But like the fact that everyone in that room had no bounds of what was right, wrong to say, like they just said it because they knew they had to be there and they knew it was helping their situation. It was crazy because it made me realize that regular people are not held accountable the same way, like straight up.
And I be telling y'all.
Yes.
I be noticing it every day of my life. I'm like, God, if you had to work a fourth step, if you had to make amends, you would lose your shit, dog.
What's the one, the resentment calendar?
Yeah, that's
I like that one.
The calendar.
What is it?
Resentment inventory.
Yes. I think everybody should do that.
I
It's
do
a
too.
solid idea through and through.
Literally, because all it is just like when you're pissed off at someone or something, you do this resentment inventory and it's like very formatted. And the point of it is to figure out what your part in it is.
Right.
So if you're having a fight with, someone,
Right.
you realize like what you can control, which is your actions. And if everybody did that,
The world would be... We wouldn't be in this place right now.
but we all can't have rock
Can't be
bottoms all the
perfect.
time. We all can't be alcoholics, allegedly.
But I think that's why the meeting in general, I always wanted to see what one was like.
Yeah.
Just because you told me so many great things, even though it's anonymous, all anonymously, obviously.
Yeah.
But like going and being in person was one, very cool. Mm-hmm. Also, a lot of hot people in there.
Period. We're the hottest among us.
The muscle in that group
We
was
love
crazy.
to work out after we get sober. And honestly, and I'll say this because this is probably the most we've talked about AA on my podcast or whatever. Listen, the anonymous part of it, I'm breaking my own anonymity. I don't really care. And personally, I think if Bill Wilson was here sitting with us right now, he'd be like, yes, girl, go off. Because the reality is the reason for anonymity and not saying like, oh, I go to AA or whatever is because if someone sees you go to AA and then relapse, they might think that the program doesn't work.
Oh.
But what I know to be true about the program as a person who's worked it many times is that if I were to relapse, it would not be the program's fault. It would be me not working the program.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say that, and I don't hear it in the comments about...
Not today, team.
Because unless Bill Wilson rises from the grave, may he rest in peace, and tells you that that's what he meant, then I don't hear it. Period. And that's my aside. Okay. So we've talked about college for... Are there any more fun stories about college that we want to touch on before we move on?
I feel like there's tons of fun college ones that we could probably go into. I mean, honestly, when I think about college, I just think about how we forced you to do so much stuff you did not want to do.
That is correct.
And because of it being an alcohol-fueled event, you were like, fuck it, we'll go. But I just think of that one party that resulted in the most famous picture of you that I think that we have.
Let's pull her up.
Couldn't...
Let's get her up. Let's get her up right now.
And I don't even know what led to it, to be totally honest. I think it was just a mix of everyone being blackout, maybe someone getting into a quarrel of some kind. But I think in the car we looked over at one point and Bridget was just crying so hard that it looked like...
Well, it was Christmas.
Yeah, so we were in Christmas ugly sweaters and...
I was really upset. We'll put that picture up.
Yeah,
There.
clip it or something like fun like
Clip-
that. Clip that,
the
dear media.
Kringle ready to mingle is what we call that picture because that was my sweater.
But that was a hilarious night. But honestly, I was thinking about before I came here, like how just obviously amazing at art and everything that you are, and how literally freshman year we clocked that so fast. And so all of us who were going to like sorority formals and fraternity formals, we had you just like pretty much
on retainer.
I mean, just lined up the coolers that we purchased for you, and we're like, dance, pony, dance. Let's get these things going.
And if I remember correctly, it was in exchange for alcohol.
It was. Yes, we bought you wine. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
And it all comes back to
And
that.
you had to do so many of them at one point. You were like, I don't care if these hoes are wet. Just get out of my face. And you were like sitting here on like a conveyor belt, like a little like sweatshop.
I want to say for the record that neither of us made it all 4 years in that sorority.
No.
It was not for us.
No, definitely.
So
Again,
we're
the
not-
bond. That's why you and I were like, let's get the hell out of
It's
here.
not for me. I didn't make it very long at all. I said, this is not good. We should not be doing this as a society.
It wasn't fun.
No, and it was horrible. And literally, like, as soon as I went through recruitment on the other side, I was like, this is one of the rudest things I've ever been a part of.
But it
Like,
did, if you think about it, all of us, like our core friends now, same sorority.
Yeah.
It's like we just went in.
Well, someone got me into that sorority. I genuinely don't think they would have picked
That's
me
not
otherwise.
true.
That's what I choose to believe.
I'm just saying.
Okay, well, I also want to talk about the time that, remember when I broke my knee? I broke my patella
Down the hill
down the hill.
at the
I
KA party. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to say exact names.
I fell down a hill.
Into a bunch of cactus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally couldn't have been
Our
worse.
friends had a horrible time with cactus for a while. Like, Alicia did it. You did it. I'm pretty sure someone pushed somebody at some point and rolled down a hill.
Yeah,
Like, being
absolutely.
in the hill country was a bad place to be drunk and in college. And you really busted ass that day.
Yeah, it was
Hard.
the way I was on
Did
a
you have
ledge.
crutches?
Yeah, and a knee brace, dog.
So fucking
And I got in
nerdy.
trouble for that. Ugh, such horseshit. Okay, great. Well, I think that's a good college
Yeah,
story to end that
definitely.
one on.
We'll think of more eventually. I can always resubmit them.
I have written down MVB for Martin Van Buren because I had this succulent plant
Dead.
that I had named Martin Van Buren that I kept in my Mitsubishi Diamante
the
that
cup
would
holder.
flood when it rained.
We used it as an ashtray after a while.
And he did pass.
He did.
He is flying high with the angels
Absolutely
at
killed
this
his
time.
ass after. And then you just had floating dirt all over your car.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
But it's okay because, we don't have to live that way anymore. Okay, Emily, I would like to invite you to a segment of the podcast that I call Rock Bottom versus Pink Cloud.
Okay.
And you know what a pink cloud is because you asked me during the AA meeting and I said, Emily, don't talk during the AA
Right.
meeting.
You said, hey, don't talk and don't clap. I said, all right.
But for anyone who doesn't know what a pink cloud is, in recovery, we call the pink cloud. After you get sober, things tend to be pretty good for a month period. Like after the first month, maybe month 2, things just seem really great because your life is improving and you kind of get into this manic place. Doesn't happen to everyone, but definitely happened to me. Anyways, so rock bottom, obviously, this is going to be your low of the week. Pink cloud is going to be your highlight of the week. So it's rose and thorn, but alcoholic version.
Right.
So let's start with your rock bottom. What's going on this week that sucks?
This week, I think for me, rock bottom was probably that I was supposed to go into the office yesterday for a team meeting. Hate that. Through and through on my end. Had to suck it up. Go for a good hour and a half stint. And I know people just hate to hear me complain about that, but I hated it every fucking moment of it. But I'm totally remote. So I feel like that's the kind of thing that I'm just like, ugh. I don't need that social aspect. I have my 5 friends and we're good. You know what I mean? Really good. Also, it was horribly raining outside. I could come with every excuse as to why I did not want to do that. And so that was my rock bottom through and through. Also,
The
why I
alcoholics-
stuck out in that
The
meeting.
alcoholics watching are going to be like, wow, you had
Terrible.
to go to work for an hour.
Sorry. I signed a remote contract, folks.
That's okay. We're not going to compare hardships, okay? That was really hard for you. And we all
Mutual
know.
suffering.
Really hard. So sorry that happened.
Thank you.
Okay, what's your pink cloud?
For the week, I think it was that I kind of got past that whole thing with my sister where I was getting real sick of her ass for a minute there. She stays with me on the weekends and we kind of have been Cold War beefing it out in a way. And the other day we talked and I just found a place within my heart to be like, fuck it, who cares at this point? And honestly, I felt much lighter since then.
Yay, as sisters do.
God.
Classic
And it was
sisters.
literally over her stealing my shirts. So
Yeah, and I get that.
another deep situation from Emily for sure.
And I'll go ahead and give you another opportunity to say that your pink cloud was this.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, this for sure.
No, and I know that that's what you meant.
It
I
is.
just
It
wanted to
really
give you
is.
the opportunity to share that
I'm
with
flattered
me.
I'm the first guest. Hello?
Well, literally, we're getting into the groove, and I
also,
felt like
I think I threatened you too and said, if you let somebody else before me, I'll kill you.
that is correct. If you're any of my other friends
I
watching,
said,
she did
the
threaten my
boyfriend?
life.
Fuck no.
he's
I'm going
not-
first.
He's not getting on here. Are you fucking kidding me? No, just kidding. He would be great for followers because British.
Totally.
My rock bottom of the week is gonna be geopolitics and the state of the world. Rough. Not loving that.
I'll double down on that one too, because I think you and I, for sure,
We talked about it for at least 5 hours yesterday.
talked about it with my dad yesterday for about an hour and a half.
Rough.
Really, whoever will listen at this point.
That's gonna be one rock bottom. A secondary rock bottom is gonna be that.
Weep too.
Well, yeah, you know me. I've been negative $300 for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Literally 2 weeks, but we get paid tonight, baby. So that's gonna be a pink cloud. And also, my major pink cloud is this moment because as I was driving up here and getting ready to put all this stuff up, I was like, I mean, I know we laugh about the ditch, but
You laugh about the ditch. You start that every time.
well, it's hilarious that I literally got drunk in a ditch in a brown paper sack. But if you'd have told Bridget in the ditch,
No,
like
no.
she would have been like, no, I'm actually planning on dying at 27.
And I feel like that is truly the difference. To be young, I know they're bad. It's like we keep saying good stuff. And they keep coming
I know
back.
I threatened my life and they're going to 5150 me.
I feel like that is a true difference though between like you before, during, and after. Is just like the mental, like, I guess, belief in yourself almost that like you could do whatever. Because even back in college, I feel like everybody saw it in you. We're like, girl, you're good. We're gonna be good. Like, we're all pretty drunk all the time. We all like don't have any money, type of thing. And like, I think that's just been the biggest change in you that I've seen. Of just like literally knowing no matter what happens, I've already been through easily the shittiest thing that's ever happened to anybody.
That
And
part.
here we are. Again, looking supple, amazing, happy, negative $300, but hey, we come back.
It'll be, that's why we're doing the pod. Please subscribe.
You put your Venmo link at the bottom.
No, genuinely, I'm actually going to start crying. No, but yeah. Did I already do my pink cloud? Oh yeah, it's this. Pretty fucking cool that now, like, the worst thing I've ever been through in my life that literally lingered for so long, is now something that I get to like share about and
Giggle.
and like giggle with my best friend. Very
In a
exciting.
professional setup too.
I mean, look at this fucking place, dog. Remember last week when I was in my apartment with the sheet up?
Yeah, but it still looked good if we're being honest.
Literally. Okay, great. Loved that rock bottom pink cloud moment. Everyone clap. Yeah. And then we also talked about the AA meeting, so great. Emily, do you have questions for me? I've always wondered this.
Yes, I do.
Not that we don't talk every
I know,
minute
that's
of
the
every day.
toughie. We share a
Any,
brain
like,
cell.
Any new questions that you've been too afraid to ask me?
It was so, when you texted me the other day, what are some questions you have? I said, I literally know everything about your stupid ass. What do you mean?
Period.
But yes, I do. I think from like, if I were to sort of look at it before, like knowing as much as I do now about your addiction and stuff, I think it would be really interesting to sort of hear from your point of view what it felt like to be, maybe let's say like before you really thought you're an alcoholic, but realized that you were drinking a lot more than other people. Like, what did that moment kind of look like to you? And when you look back on it now, how would you say you recognize it differently?
So I'll never forget this time in college that I was up until 5 a.m. drinking, but also doing other things that could potentially keep you up till 5 a.m. while you're drinking.
Which is not even that on brand for you,
No,
honestly.
it wasn't, but it was my journey at the time. Anyways, and I remember I looked at my roommate at the time. We won't name names, but
I need to stop naming names. Sorry, they just fly out of my
You've
mouth.
been naming names. You even dropped my
Can we bleep
ex-boyfriend's
him?
name. I said, don't invite him on the podcast. He's not invited. He made me go to Tulsa. Anyways.
I'm so sorry to the Academy.
No, literally, I want you to bleep his name like it was a curse word.
Can we?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
But anyways, I told her that night because I like looked around and everyone had gone to sleep except for me and this girl. And I realized like, and I knew for a long time, like other people don't need alcohol the same way that I do. Like the stories you were telling about when we were like, you guys would all just be content with like, oh, I guess we'll just like stay in and watch a movie tonight. And I'd be like,
Well, we would just
"Excuse me?"
stay in and we just like, you know.
Like cook.
Yeah.
No. And I said, all this can be done with alcohol and
Totally,
it should be
yeah.
done. So I think I always realized that my relationship to it was slightly different. But this specific night I told her, I was like, you know, I think I'm going to be the type of person who has to quit drinking one day. Now, I did believe that was going to be when I was 45.
Right.
It ended up being when I was 25, unfortunately. I thought I was going to get some more time out of that. But then, you know, even when you say that, like, you don't feel like you're an alcoholic.
Right.
Because what's weird is, like...
There's such a stigma to it.
And I thought, which obviously this doesn't make any sense, but this is what I thought. Like, I thought that alcoholics just somehow, like, knew that they were. Like, one day you just woke up and, like, had the realization, like... oh, I'm an alcoholic. Because
Yeah.
I had been able to drink like everyone else for so long that I just like, I guess I didn't think that was the experience of someone who's an alcoholic, but because
we
I
don't
didn't
see anything like that.
Yeah. And like one day you just cross a line and you can't return from it. And So literally I had to go to detox like 15 times. I mean, it was probably like 7 times, and rehab really twice before I even really knew I was an alcoholic, because I kept thinking like, this is a fluke. I was just depressed and I was drinking. And then I would be happy, and then I would relapse, and then I would be sad. And then I would just be drunk, and then I'd be in the ditch. And I'm like,
don't say the ditch like it was a reoccurring factor.
A lot. I spent a
Maybe
lot
metaphorically.
of time outdoors.
Yeah. The woods.
The woods.
Have you talked about the woods?
I did. When there was a time when everyone in my life knew I wasn't supposed to be drinking.
That wasn't a question or anything, but I would like to hear the story.
And he who shall not be named.
Sorry.
Even though we love to name him.
My bad.
He was like, monitoring me, making sure like I didn't have my money when I went to go like drive somewhere. And so I'd go drive to get wine. And what I would do is I would put the wine in the forest nearby the house. And then
Sounds like a quest on a video game.
And honestly, it's the smartest thing I've ever done. I would put the wine in the forest, hide it behind a tree, so that another alcoholic wouldn't just pass by and know to drink it. And then I went home and like I allowed him to search my person.
You walked in, you said, "Pat me down."
I said, "Pat me down. Look in the car. Look anywhere. Look in the bushes outside."
Didn't you say you would get really like hot, like you're running or something?
That comes later, because then I say to him, I say, "See, you can trust me."
Duh.
Obviously.
You idiot.
And then I'm like, by the way, I'm going on a walk. I go on the walk.
It's raining outside.
Literally 105 degrees Tulsa, Oklahoma. I walk to the forest
woods.
And I sit down. I sit in that swampy land and I drink those cartons of wine, my dog.
Tiny wines.
Now then, the strange thing is I got endurance to run when I was drinking. And I don't like to run.
I was about to say.
But I just found it in me. I don't know. Every time I would drink, I'd love to run. So
Just
I
going on
ran
an
back.
adventure.
I'm sweating my ass off. So I walk in the door. I obviously reek of wine, but I'm also sweating. And I'm like, please, I have to get in the shower right now. Don't bother me. So I get in the shower. I brush my teeth. It was a foolproof plan until I was hammered shortly thereafter, and everyone could tell. Mm-hmm. So anyways.
Beautiful
times.
times. Yeah. I like hearing that. I mean, it's like funny to think about that now, because it's all things that aren't really like you. You know what I mean? Like
the deception.
It's crazy how much something like that can actually change you kind of deep down, and how much you can kind of revert back to other ways afterwards,
Yeah, I was literally like such a lying, thieving, conniving.
You suck at lying too. That's what blows my mind.
Not when I'm drunk, baby.
I know. It's like a confrontation of any kind normally genuinely makes you want to blow up on the inside. It's crazy. Even just like a waiter getting your food wrong or something.
No, that's what I ordered.
Yeah, crazy.
We'll never say a word.
That's why you're surrounded by people like us, though, because we have no problem throwing attitude in those moments. But yeah.
My Aries queen.
Yeah, I guess just stuff like that. I'm like, that is just so nuts, but hey, whatever. I do have another question for you.
Okay, great.
In specific, I guess, just about like friendships before, during, and after addiction, what's been the hardest part about making new friends and then keeping your old friends?
Great question. I lost a lot of friends in terms of like, first of all, I was a shithead when I was in my addiction. So like some of those friendships I deserved to lose. But then also some friendships just were drinking oriented, and it didn't really stand the test of time when I got sober. For the first 2 years of my sobriety, I was wildly uninterested in making a singular friend. I was like, I am going to my meetings. I'm going to work. I talk to you. That's all I'm doing, because I don't want to change anything, because this is working for me right now. And now I have, my 5 friends, and I'm pretty solid on that. Mm-hmm. But I think it was hard because I really did have to rediscover like who I was in a friend group, because I used to be, as we said, the drunk crier. It feels like I wasn't really adding a lot when you put it like that. the town crier. That's me, low-key. I am the town crier. But like literally I was.
But I think with that, and we've talked about this before, but like that, yes, you did get emotional sometimes, but I also think that was the thing that made people like drawn to you in a way, even when we were shallow, drunk college girls. would make people like, okay, this is a real human with real issues. Who's open? Who's vulnerable? Yeah, she'd be sad sometimes, but we love her.
Yeah. I think, like...
You were always the person like you could go to in times of good, bad, all the things. Whereas there are the surface level people out there who you're like, you don't understand nothing, do you, big guy?
Yeah, literally. And I think now I'd like to think that my role is more doing that for other people than
1000%.
needing someone to do that for me, where it was back then. And I like love that, because a big part of recovery is like when I'm thinking about someone else or like helping someone else, which sounds like self-serving, but you know what I mean? Like if someone's confiding in me, I'm not thinking... Because
they be coming to you no matter
and
what.
they will find me on the street.
We
I
could
know
be
everyone's secrets.
We could literally be anywhere where no one else knows us, and somehow, for some reason, I look across the way and someone has Bridget cornered, just saying, "My God, this is when we got a divorce," and then blah blah blah, and you're like, oh, amazing.
Remember that time my car broke down and I was in the tire shop and the lady told me like about her whole life?
Yeah.
Anyways,
that just happens though.
That's like a part of recovery though, is like when I'm listening to someone else, I'm not thinking about my stupid shit, and I'm not spiraling and wanting to get drunk, so it's helpful. But I think like for a while it was hard because fresh out of rehab, them bitches were talking about me. And it's a fun story to tell, I'll be honest. If I had never gone to rehab and someone I knew went to rehab, I'd probably be talking about it too.
Especially if you'd understand it.
Yeah. And in hindsight, like, that was some of the people I was closest to who were making jokes about that before I was... Now we can all joke. We all laugh together about the ditch, and it's hilarious.
But I think there's certain people who they can never laugh about the ditch. They're not in...
You're
not in the inner circle.
If you laughed about the ditch before I was ready to laugh about the ditch, you can't laugh about the ditch. That's the rule, and I don't make the rules, even though I just made them. But yeah, friendships are hard, and I think that's a question I get a lot, like on my TikTok, about, you know, socializing in recovery. And what I'll say is I used to fucking hate socializing.
Yes. Like
so bad, and I thought I needed booze to do it. And then when I first got sober, also still hated it. Now I actually I think I do way better than I ever have before. So that gets better over time. I think like if you're newly sober, it's obviously going to be tricky because you're just figuring out who you are. But over time, like I can look people in the eyes now. Never like to do that.
Feel that. That and like you also have a leg up on people too. Now I feel like in social settings, whereas everybody's like getting drunker and drunker, and you're just getting to watch everybody act like idiots.
Yeah, it feels good.
It's kind of awesome. And they're telling you your secrets, and you're just like, Jesus Christ.
I know, I'm like putting that one.
You're like
catalog.
My puppets, come here.
And then I just get to go home.
Yes, and go to bed. And not wake up hungover. The most humbling thing on the planet is being around you while hungover. It is awful.
It's one of my favorite treats in life.
The 2-day hangover I had not too long. I guess it was a while ago now, but Jesus. I mean, I threw up until like 48 hours of this hangover. Bridget comes over. We order pizza. We're watching Brittany Broski videos on YouTube. I mean, we're healing. Things are good. And I just looked at her and I was like, I'm going to vomit. I'll be right back.
And then I took a sick selfie. I'm smiling ear to ear. She's walking out of the bathroom, has just vomited.
Looking the worst I could ever look. And it never stopped, too.
It's one of my favorite pictures
and
I
was
have.
Just like, frick, man. A solid memory.
Well, thanks for those questions. That was really great.
I love you.
And you learned something new about me today.
Yeah. Actually, I have one more. I want to do the last one really fast. Okay. I want to talk about your perception of fun. Like how fun you think you are now versus back then. Because I feel like that comes up a lot.
It does. I mean, my whole tagline is sobriety isn't boring and neither am I. I think I'm way more fun now. I used to be, I mean, as we said, the Town Crier. And fun to me literally meant if I had my dream, like when it was my birthday in college, I made everyone come to my apartment, wear comfy clothes, and just, you know, what was it like when your parents got a divorce? Like it was...
Everybody go in a circle, tell me what you love about me, and then also tell me the worst moment you've ever been through. Thank you.
No, literally.
But I kind of feel like you still do like that.
I do.
In a little bit, yeah. But
I also had a Brat summer last year. You know what I mean? And I would have never had that before. Sober Brat summer, something about it.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Also, I feel like you still, though, there are times when you, like, I can tell you feel like you're not as fun.
Yeah.
Like, from the outside. And it's just so wild to me because you are such, like, a fun, like, lifelike, like, person, even out at a bar. When, like, honestly, even being someone who drinks, bars suck half the time. And yet, when you're there, you're, like, the most alive person.
I think still I have a little bit of a complex about, like, being a tag-along character.
Yeah.
It's like that Taylor Swift lyric where she says,
Right.
no one wanted to play with me as a little kid, so I've been scheming like a criminal ever since. That is how I feel a lot of times, especially like in a party type situation. Like even when someone does something nice for me, like makes mocktails, sometimes I'm like, ugh, I'm the one who you have to do an extra thing. I'm like the vegan of the group that you had to bring a gross dish for. Like, you know what I mean?
The reason why we have cashew queso or something
and
at the table.
mad about the cashews, and like
We've talked about it 4 times.
No, literally, and I keep bringing it up. I'm literally a vegan. Oh
but
my
I
God.
feel like people are more so interested by it than honestly, you know, like the veganism of it.
And even if they're not, like if one time we went to a party, remember last year, Halloween, and this man, we're playing like a drinking game, but obviously my boyfriend was drinking for me, but I like to play the game still. And this guy,
you're better at
this
it.
guy comes up to me and he goes,
keep in mind, this guy, low IQ. All right, this guy was not up there.
if I ever see him, it's on site. I've thought about a million comebacks and said, he goes, are you pregnant?
No, he goes, why are you not drinking? Are you like this?
And I literally was like, excuse the fuck out of me.
And there's like 5 people sitting there, and all of us were just
mind you, I'm in a crop top.
Mind you, she's right there.
Mind you, he's asking me.
He wouldn't say it. He just like it was a Barbie, you know, the one you could take the belly off.
Also, like pregnant is a bad word.
Right.
Like if you're not going to say the word pregnant, you know you shouldn't be asking this question.
He was just. You can just tell that group doesn't come in contact with people who like willingly choose.
I got warm when I thought about it.
Yeah, me too, a little bit for you, but it was also so funny if you. From the outside.
It is hilarious.
Will, I mean, it was just like.
Will went along with it. He was like, yes, she is expecting. She's going to be due next year.
That's why she's here at this party, having fun with all of you.
But I feel like in my mind, I know in my heart of hearts that I'm more fun now, but sometimes I still feel like a tag along.
Yeah.
In certain situations where it's like, I know you guys just want to like cut loose, and like, unfortunately I'm here just like having every coherent thought anyone's ever had.
But see, I don't factor it in like that at all. If anything, it's more fun now because we can all cut loose, and then I know that you're good.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to worry or just like hope that like something doesn't come across in about it, because alcohol is like, you know, a stimulant. It messes with you. It changes your perception of things. And honestly, like no one really needs it. It's poison anyways. So.
And I know that's right.
It's kind of just better that way.
Yeah, I would agree. And you do such a good job of not making me feel like, you know, like a loser. Which I don't really feel like, but some people.
I would pray to God. Look at the setup right now. Like, you're definitely not a loser. All the things that you've gotten from sobriety.
And all those people.
The haters are mad.
All the haters that said,
fuck 'em.
Oh, she's making a TikTok. Bitch, look at me now, okay? Yeah, laugh about the rehab. Ha ha, so funny. I almost died of alcoholism. LOL. I am glad we're all having a good laugh. Anyways, so
that was our cynical moment for the whole thing. We're like, all right, fine, we're back.
Sometimes I have to be a little bit of a bitch just so I can live.
Just gotta let it loose.
You know what I think is interesting that you told me about the AA meeting is that like I always tell you about the voices in my head of like the reason I just like can't ever stop thinking about stuff. And you said that it was interesting to hear almost everyone else in the meeting also talk about the voices.
Yeah.
So I thought it would be fun to do a little game where we talk about things historically, like that could have happened and how my brain takes them. So an addict brain versus a normal person's brain. And
normal's a stretch, but yeah.
yeah,
for sure.
so I'll start and I'll say last week I texted you because I literally text you about every single thing that's ever happened to me.
Totally.
And I said, I have a headache. Separate message. Separate message. I do think it's an aneurysm.
Right.
Perhaps a brain tumor, but it's one of those two.
That's got to be it.
Because I was like, I never have headaches. And to this moment in time, as we're sitting here reflecting upon that moment, I stand by that because I don't get headaches. So why would I have that one?
Yeah.
Now, what would you think if you had a headache?
Well, in that moment specifically, I thought, well, have you eaten anything of nutrients or, any sort of vitamin recently? Have you drank any water? Have we worked out? Have we taken care of ourselves? And I knew the answer to all of those were no, because I knew what you had done all day long. Mm-hmm. But my normal brain in that moment would just think like, hey, I probably should pop a Tylenol really fast. Mm-hmm. I probably, stayed up a little later than I needed to last night. I would never spiral straight to tumor or brain aneurysm for sure, because I don't Google things like that, unlike you.
Yeah, and it really is so nice to have someone who has your brain, because I can at least find middle ground between us. Yeah. Because you go it's just so logical what you think. But to me, it's like if someone doesn't respond to me,
are you mad?
I literally started following Austin mugshots the other day. Yeah. Because someone wasn't responding to me and I thought surely that they had been arrested.
Yeah.
And you were like, or
their just phone died?
Perhaps.
Or just not looking at it?
Yeah. But I think, would you say that maybe it's helpful to have my point of view?
I think it is a little. I should probably say a little more agile on things,
And I appreciate that.
I try not to let it seep in too hard.
Right. It is terrible. Yeah. I'll say.
But there are certain things that I feel like there's a perspective on where like I skew avoidant on stuff sometimes. Mm-hmm. Or I'm just like, not my problem. Yeah. And I feel like you at least have a perspective of it is actually your problem and you should probably look at these things in a little more.
And you know what is a great example of me and my fear of saving the day?
What?
The camping trip. We went on a camping trip. Emily loves to camp. She's very outdoorsy. I personally do not like that. And I know what you're thinking. The ditch? It was weird.
I didn't put a gun up to anyone's head and say, you're coming camping with me, team.
It was the summertime.
Everybody signed up to do it. They actually said, I'd love if you'd help facilitate this. And I said, amazing, let's do it.
And we were in agreement, and I thought it was going to be great. But then when the sun went down and it remained 97 degrees.
We also went the last weekend that this park was open in the summertime. Mm-hmm. It was that hot outside.
And we saw multiple scorpions on Scorpii? Scorpions, for sure. There was multiple on the ground. And I said to myself, I'll be leaving. And I don't know how I'm going to tell you that, but I will not be.
Actually, what happened is, it was 4 of us who all camped together. And when I say camp, it's like a soft camp. Like, we glamped pretty hard. We had...
I wouldn't say. There was tents involved.
Relax. It was nice tents. We had, what would be like a yurt type situation going on. You wouldn't know. You never went inside of it.
I was in the tent, and there was a scorpion in there.
We had all this stuff. It probably took us, 2 hours to set up?
It did.
And that was kind of the fun part, though. We had all our dogs, and we grilled and just hung out, and it was the girlies, and we were trying to do things that didn't involve drinking or going out because we were over it at that point. Mm-hmm. And so we thought might as well build a sweat lodge outside. Yep. And so we're hanging out, and Bridget before this, she's really good about her radar app. I always go to you about the weather, and you really...
I do be knowing when a tornado's coming.
Totally. And you said initially, and I think now looking back on it, this was you trying to make us not go. Absolutely. But you're it does say that there's storms coming. And I was like, it also says to shut the fuck up and to get in my car.
You don't believe my radar app, and it's always right.
I believe you, but then sometimes I'm it can always change. You know what I mean? Yeah. But we were going anyways, and so we went and had everything set up. We're playing games, and then we did see a scorpion crawl towards my toe. Mm-hmm. And you are the one who saw it, and you were like, hey, let's...
I'm anti that.
Be diligent of this. Scorpion. But at this point, we're in a circle. We're literally passing a fan to each other because we were sweating that hard. And I think at that point, everyone was trying to pretend like we're still having fun and just kind of muscle through it. And it was 11:30ish, maybe.
And I said, I have to go to my car to grab something.
You went to the car. Maddie and our two other friends went to the bathroom and they saw an even larger scorpion. Came back screaming. And then the four of us were all sitting there. You, our other friend, sat in your car for a second and said, how are we going to tell them we're not going back in there?
I'm leaving. How are we going to tell them?
And so it was like 11. We just looked at each other and we're like, fuck it. Let's just throw everything in my car. We'll get out of here. Turns out, like, torrential thunderstorms that night.
We came
to the
back,
point, yeah.
Because you said, all right, we can leave, but we all are driving our happy asses back up here in the morning to pick up.
Get these steaks.
And when we came back, the
tent,
the lamp,
the tent, we left
fallen.
one thing up. It was one giant tent. It was literally upside down. And then the people who were next to us camping were like walking back with their McDonald's, and they're like, oh, it was crazy last night. And I just looked around and I was like, God damn it, she was right.
and let that be a lesson to us all, that sometimes the worst case scenario thinking helps.
Sometimes the voices are right.
And that's what they don't want us to know.
They don't.
Literally, that's my therapist's nightmare, is my voices being correct.
Yeah, it's 1 in about 10. I'm going to be upfront here.
I would venture to say it's
15?
1 in 100.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
because honestly, the only time I've ever been right is that time. Actually, they've both been storm related. That time in the hailstorm that totaled my car.
Yeah.
I had always worried about the hailstorms. And then what do you know?
You and Mother Nature, I feel like just have never really gotten along that well.
Absolute beef.
Except you in the woods with the tiny wines.
That's when we were in sync, honestly, me and Mother Nature. She said, don't worry, girl, I'll give you some shade while you're
She brought her roots out and put it over your wine so no other alcoholics would see it.
No, and literally I was thinking like, okay, where do I put this in a place I'll remember, but the other alcoholics won't think to look? And that's the trick. And that's what you have to remember, is you have to outsmart the other alcoholics. Oh, okay. Well, I have our final segment, but is there anything I missed before that? Anything you want to touch on?
I don't think so. Did you have another addict versus normie brain you wanted to do? Or was it just that one?
Well, I did want to do one where I was wrong and one was right, and we did. But I feel like, is there another one you can think of?
I was thinking of like words.
Okay, hit me with a word.
Like, what was it the other day when we were sitting there and you were like, talked about something like in the morning drinking. I was like, yeah, I just slam a water or something. You're like, wow.
Oh,
a
yeah.
Sauvignon Blanc is
Blanc.
really the only thing I think of in the morning. And I was like,
what people don't understand is like when people get hungover, they're like, I couldn't even think about alcohol.
I would throw up.
I said, where's my Sauvignon Blanc? Get her to me now. Morning drinking, and that's the problem. This is why
my least favorite thing.
I would like to say something to the people right now, and it is that mimosas are a gateway drug to alcoholism, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again.
Totally with that.
When you start normalizing drinking in the morning, and then your body learns what cures a hangover is more alcohol. Mimosas are the reason I started drinking in the morning, and then one day I just never stopped drinking in the morning, and then it just became 24/7 drinking.
It turned into Taka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Taka $4.25 for a little pint of Taka.
Ugh.
And you can find $4.25 in quarters around any parking lot.
In your couch.
And that's what I learned. No, there was no more quarters in my house by the end of my addiction.
Shaking it up.
I found all of them, as a matter of fact.
Oh, you know what's a good one? Perfume.
Oh.
When we made that association, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So I think randomly one day we were just talking about types of perfume. And to me, when I think of perfume, I think of smelling good,
Right.
looking good, feeling good. And what did you say?
Well, it was a few months ago I found my Marc Jacobs Daisy perfume, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot all about this. It's been years. And I spritz it on my body and immediately just start dry heaving, because I had remembered that when I was living with my parents and trying to do an at-home detox, but I was like going through severe withdrawals, and like literally they had like locked up all the alcohol. It was torturous. It was
a prison.
It literally was a prison. I thought I was going to die. I popped open that Marc Jacobs Daisy and I put that in my mouth, dog, because I looked on the back and it said alcohol did not. And I said, close enough. And it was I mean, 0% recommend. Literally immediately felt my, like, organs. I felt them.
Shriveling?
I literally felt
Crying?
them, like, in pain. And it was so repulsive that I'll never forget. And anytime I smelled that, like, I remember, and it was, like, so terrible. Trigger warning.
Sorry, everybody, if you hate thinking about throwing up like I do, I'm like...
Yeah, well, I had to throw up more than anyone ever has. So.
Trust and believe. I'm heard
and believe. Sorry, Mark Jacobs, for
Love you, though.
everything I said.
Keep up the good work.
Mark, sponsored by Mark Jacobs Daisy.
Or the ladybug one. We just move on to a new smell.
Okay, perfect. So now we're going to do Close My Tab, which is the final segment of the show.
Love this one.
Where we're closing the tab on things we're letting go of, things that are no longer serving us. And maybe perhaps even opening the tab on other things that we are going to invite into our lives instead. So what are you closing the tab on this week, Emily?
I decided to close... I mean, I feel like I decided to close the tab on this quite some time ago, ever since, like, just learning more about addiction and recovery and just seeing somebody I love go through that type of thing. But we're closing the tab on bitches who judge through all of that.
And period.
We are done with them hoes. Anybody who is too shallow to be able to look on the outside of their own perception and see someone struggling and instead just be an asshole, fuck them.
Fuck them.
Literally closing the tab.
Close my tab on that bitch. I love that. I'm closing the tab on... What am I closing the tab on? I think this week... I literally had therapy this morning, and...
Did you?
Yeah.
Bold.
It's been a wild week. Hannah said, girl. I said, I know.
Anytime I say something to you, like, prior to therapy, I'm like, don't tell Hannah I said that. I don't want her to be mad at
Hannah's
me.
going to hear. She's going to hear about it. Today, she was like, dang. But...
Ways we can always surprise our therapist.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm closing the tab on things that... I say this probably every single day, and I struggle to close the tab on this, but high level worrying about the future. So opening the tab on staying present, and then on a lesser level, I am closing the tab on staying out for even one singular second longer than I want to be.
Bang, bang, baby.
I'm going home and I'm getting under my blankets, and that's what I'm doing.
I love when you do it, too. It's one of those things where I'm like, damn, you earned that.
And you always tell me that when I'm leaving your apartment, I just...
She just get up, just leaves.
Towards the door. I just kind of linger by the door. And then
This is also not when we're going out. This is when you're sitting in my house hanging out, and we'll be mid-conversation, and I look up, and Bridget's just, like, slowly walking towards the door. I'm like, hey, you could say bye, you freak.
I don't know how to transition.
How to end the group hang.
Yeah, because I want it to be like, I want you to know how much I value and love our friendship.
But instead I'm going to say nothing.
I want to get in my bed. So I'm just going to hope you don't notice me leaving, even though it's only
like,
us
hey,
here.
close your eyes really fast and then count to 10 and I'll be gone.
Wait, that's a great idea.
We can do that.
Emily, thank you so much for being my first guest
Thank
and
you
for
for
being my
having
best friend and for literally making me feel like you are the person who brought me back to life. Literally, I think after everything happened and you made me feel normal again for the first time, and you never looked at me like you poor little wet dog in the street.
And
I
confused
really
me.
I did the old switcheroo.
But I love you, of course. Thank you for having me as your first guest. And thank you for, honestly, just being the sober queen that you are. You're an amazing person. I love you.
I love you so much. And thank you guys all for watching, and subscribe, please, because as you know, I have negative $300 in my bank account.
Hit that link, baby.
Smash the like button. Yeah, and we'll be back next Thursday. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.